Well, the first thing I would say is that I oppose the Digital Economy Bill. You'll find on the websites of the campaign groups that have been opposing it a video support from me against it, because firstly it was rushed through Parliament, secondly the implications of it have not been properly thought out, and you highlight one of those implications. So I think that the legislation needs to be reversed, and that's one of the things that I would push for if elected as MP. If it's not reversed, then we clearly need to monitor the implications of it, and we need to ensure that it doesn't adversely affect particularly those in shared accommodation, who are perhaps the people who are most obviously going to be affected by it. One of the things that I could do as an opposition MP is to ask questions, to embarrass the government on things all the time, and there will be data available. Well, yeah, that's not I'll need embarrassing on, and it's often a way to push them in the right direction. So we need to monitor the data about who's particularly affected by this, and it will particularly affect people in shared accommodation. But I think the fundamental point is that the basis for this legislation is flawed, and it wasn't properly thought through. The internet is a force for good, it's a force for sharing information for free, it's a good thing for people who don't have lots of financial resources, such as students. So the main thing I would do on this is to press for the legislation to be reversed.
There's 2 points here. Number one is that the bill wasn't really properly thought through, and I do think that there were serious flaws in terms of scrutiny which was shown in Parliament first time round. I do think that the internet has been a force for good, and for every useless sort of political blog, and I know because I write one, there is, you will also find that there are sites, genuine sites, which are breaking stories and doing things which are good for democracy because they move it along. And the way that it's in the viral world and the YouTube generation go through, it's actually made the election online much more exciting. And why we would want to start to over-regulate that, I wouldn't understand. But the other thing which I have a problem with is the speed with which this went through. I can't remember whether it was in the wash-up or just before. If it was in the wash-up, well, there's no surprise for you. I actually think this is one of the least democratic moments. We talk about being a democracy, and then once every 4 years we put our party whips in a room, we thrash out which pieces of legislation were put through on a nod. That would never happen at any other time of the political cycle. The debate on the Digital Economy Bill lasted, are you ready for it, 2 hours. That's how long it lasted, and then they moved straight to the vote, which means aside from major party spokesmen, there was virtually no time for backbench contributions. Several MPs, I think notably on the Liberal Democrat side, who wanted to get in, were unable to speak during that bill. And I think the best thing that we could do is have an incoming government. I speak for myself here rather than the Conservative Party, an incoming government which pledges to look again at the legislation in order to give it a fair hearing in Parliament.
Well, I will be quick because many of the points have already been made, but the Liberal Democrats certainly did try and stop this legislation being rushed through. It needed more debate, it needed amending significantly. It didn't get the scrutiny that it needed, as Anthony said, but this is a hugely significant piece of legislation that went through as part of the wash-up procedure, and there is this real danger now that innocent people might have their internet connection taken away. It seemed to me that the bill, as it was put together, as it was proposed and moved through, was heavily weighted in favour of the interests of big corporations and not the end user. So I would, as MP, I would work to try and see this legislation repealed and to see the issues looked at again. There were some issues that were significant that the bill was intended to look at, but it failed because it was a completely botched piece of legislation. So we need to look at those issues again and repeal this poor legislation.
I supported the bill and I voted for it. The reason why I did was that I believe that the whole question of how you reward creativity in the modern digital economy is exceptionally important. When people are creative, when people do things, then they need to be properly able to be rewarded and encouraged to operate in that way. I don't accept the criticism that was a bill for big entertainment corporations and Simon was dismayed. Nor, by the way, do I accept the charge that it was rushed through the whole of Parliament. It was rushed through the Commons because it was dealt with in the wash-up in the way that it's being described. But there was actually debate in the Lords about quite a range of the issues. As MPs, I received a number of complaints about the bill from two particular groups. Group one was photographers who were worried for various reasons that there was a risk to their intellectual property rights and what came through. Group two was the one that Harry has raised, of the potential penalties against people who are sharing use of internet being penalised for other people's essentially illegality. I took both of those very seriously and do take both of them seriously as possible risks, though the conclusion I came to was the risk was overstated. If indeed I'm proved wrong, I don't think I will be, then I would certainly accept to Harry and to others who are concerned about it that we would need to go back and revise the legislation. But I think there were fears raised about the bill which will in fact not be warranted in the course of it. And I do think this business of how you encourage people to use the digital economy, to use the internet in a productive way, without finding the product of everything they've done just stolen away from them, is an important one, which is why I think the bill is necessary.